Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back. Today, I'm doing 3 book reviews of books that I read recently. I have 1 physical copy and then 2 that I read ebook on my Kindle. So, let me start with my physical copy. That is Cross the Tracks by Boosie Badazz. It's a memoir. If you know who Boosie is, you know. If you don't, you probably wouldn't want to read this. I'm just being honest with you. Yeah. This is a non-linear, traumatic. It's traumatic, but he not telling it like it's traumatic, but it low-key is traumatic story of his upbringing, his adulthood, his parenthood, and even like you get glimpses of like his rise to stardom. Not that much though, so just a little bit. But this book basically is about his life. He talks about him being a young dude growing up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His neighborhood is called Cross the Tracks. That's how he got the title of the book. And he's just talking about like what the norm was, you know, what was expected of him or not, why he did some of the things he did, why he made the choices he made, kind of detailed his past relationships just a little bit. It wasn't too much in depth on like his like romantic relationships. He did mention like some of the mother of his kids and stuff, but really he talked about his brotherhood bonds. He talked about how he grew as a man, his view of like the hood and the prison system and cops and the legal system as a whole and parenthood, specifically fatherhood. His view, he talked about his mom and his dad, how he viewed them. And it was interesting reading this because during like high school, some of middle school, but really high school, his music was carrying me. Him and Drew Hill, I clear that was all I was listening to, and Gucci Mane. But anyways, that's what I was listening to growing up and thinking about like what he was doing, why he was like writing these songs and pushing them out, releasing songs while in jail, like, or prison, releasing songs like while you was really out there risking your life every day and like making the worst decisions ever. And I'm just like jamming to the music, not even knowing what you actually doing in real life. That's wild for me to think about now. And then some of the book made me like, dang, this was sad to read. Not because he was making it seem like woe is me, but just like seeing how certain circumstances can help you develop like your mindset, and then you perpetuate that, whether it's positive or negative, like things that you got, and you put that out into the world, whether that be good or bad. Just made me think about like what my contribution is to my kids and my community and my household. He talks a lot about ownership, especially in the Black community, and the importance of it, the importance of raising your kids. And some of this book was very triggering for me, very much so. I was just like, why? I don't know. Some of this was triggering for me personally. I was really like, dude, I don't know. And then reading this book, a lot of this book made me think about and reminded me of my brother, who is no longer with us. It made me think about my brother, who was the first person that I heard in my youth listening to Boosie, and kind of like, I was like, oh yeah, that's good, that's cool. And so it made me think about him, made me think about his life. It made me think about what my brother would have been as a father if he had like met his son. You know, he died before his son was born. And it just made me think about what kind of dad he would have been, you know. Good, bad, all around. Nobody's perfect, but it just made me think about like what his contribution would have been to the world and stuff like that. So I don't know. I was like in my feelings a little bit reading this. I was annoyed at some points because I wanted to like shake through the book and be like, make better decisions. But it's not that easy all the time, I know. And then it talked about his health stuff, like he has type 1 diabetes, talked about that, talked about his battle with cancer, talked about, yeah, his love for his, like, his brotherhood bonds, like his love for his friends, and he really has a respect and a love for his mom. And yeah, full of pictures, you know, so many things to look at. But yeah, that's the first book. If you like memoirs and you know or like Boosie, it's a read that I feel like you would enjoy. It's got some highs and lows, and it's just it's not a book that I would be like a memoir that's like, it's not Viola Davis memoir where it's well written and it's like the pacing is good and it's like this great storytelling, and she got a great story mixed with a great book and they merge. It's not like that, but it's raw and it's truthful and it's real and it's a direct like view into his life and his mindset and his thoughts. And for that reason, I'm glad I read it. I read it again because it's very telling, very eye-opening. So yeah, that's that. I also read Dopamine Nation on my Kindle. This book was good. It was a short read. It talks about basically the balance of pain and pleasure, the balance of seeking pleasure, but almost needing pain almost, and talked about how we're in an age and in a time where we want to get rid of the pain and we just want to be pleasure. We just want to feel that dopamine boost. We just want to be happy. We just want to be like fulfilled. We're constantly seeking and searching for that, and how there are negative effects of that. Talked about the use of social media. It talked about very extreme addiction cases with drugs, with talked about sex addiction. It talked about what else? It kind of talked about food addiction a little bit. But yeah, then the author uses her personal experience with dopamine chasing and addiction of erotica literature and romance novels to the extreme, which I was just like, okay. I mean, I guess anything can be an addiction depending on what it is. But anyways, and then she uses her client stories as well to kind of tell that story of what that balance can and probably should look like. Her philosophy, pretty much after reading the book, I gathered that her philosophy is using the science that you know about addiction and the knowledge of abstinence and what's the word? Rehab, almost. I don't know exactly. Like abstinence / rehab, and merging the two. That's kind of like the starting point of healing in general. But it was interesting. It was a lot in that book that you probably already know. And then, so it was good reminders. But it was also some stuff that made me like sit back and think about some of my habits and some things that I do. And so I feel like it was a good book. It's a good starting point to talk about problematic behaviors, problematic searching. She also talks about the importance and the highlights the collective group, and talks about shaming, the use of shaming, whether good or bad, and how that can be used. So I thought that was interesting too. But yeah, the only thing, anything can be an addiction, I know. But like when I was hearing her talk about reading, reading was an addiction. Erotica literature and romance novels. She talks about she read Twilight like 3 or 4 or 5 times or something like that. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I thought based on her addiction that the book would be talking more about like mild dosing and mid dosing type things, where we'd be talking about like too much social media use and too much, checking out from reality. But then she kind of took a turn and we're talking about her patients with extreme addiction. So it's kind of like, which one are we doing? I mean, because I feel like both of them, while they might be rooted in some of the same things, is two totally different approaches. But she did mention how you can what she call it? I can't remember exactly what she called it, but you can like level yourself down versus like completely cutting something off. So I guess like with social media, you know, you could just say, I'm only going to use it between the hours of X, Y, and X, Y, or I'm only going to like be on it for 4 hours a day or whatever. So you could do that. She did mention it, but it was more like an afterthought, really, because the whole book was kind of centered on those, like mostly centered on hardcore, like extreme addictions. And it was just like, okay, yeah, cut that off completely. I don't know. It was good. For me, it made me look at myself and reflect. It made me think about some of the things that I do and like some of my habits and put it under a microscope, you know what I mean? And think about what I'm displaying and examples that I'm setting for my kids. And another thing I like about this book, it talked about the importance of honesty with your kids. I love that. But yeah, that's it for that. And then the last book that I read on my Kindle was Carolina Built by Kianna Alexander. This book is a historical fiction book that pretty much goes over the life of Josephine Leary, who is a North Carolina native, as am I, as am the author of this book, who really set the scene. She made moves in her community, okay? Around the Edenton area, Elizabeth City area. Yeah, and she left a legacy for her kids through real estate development, and how she navigated that during the time of like the late 1800s. How she navigated that when, one, she was black. She was mixed, but she was black presenting, you know, she was black. Two, she was a woman during this time. She had a husband that was white passing, who though he loved her, he was a victim of his time too, where he felt some kind of way about like her being that ambitious and wanting to make moves like that and having to hear from all of his peers. And so she got the pressure from her husband, who she know loves her, but is like he wearing her down some over here. And then you got the pressure from the world telling her what she can and can't do. Then she becomes a mother, and so the pressure increases for her to want to leave a legacy for her kids. And it just goes over like her life and the generations before her, her mama, her grandma, what they did to be able to ensure the future of their kids and their grandkids. And it was a beautiful story, because the author mentioned that she, as a North Carolina native, never heard of Josephine Leary. Neither have I. So I went down a rabbit hole. I started Googling all kind of stuff. And I like to know historical things like that, especially from like my home state. And she was really out there like making power moves, you know, she up against adversity and still doing what she needed to do inside her home and out. So I feel like it was a really good book. It moved me in a few ways. I was annoyed at a couple of times, not because of the author of the book, but because of the characters in the book. So, you know, you get the different emotions while reading it. And yeah, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. If you've read any of these, let me know what you think. Let me know. If you want to read any of them, let me know. And if you're from North Carolina, let me know in the comments too. We'll see y'all on the next one.